So UFC 312 is a horrible card. The whole pay-per-view is a complete disgrace. I'm going to compare this card to some of the worst pay-per-views of last year and essentially just rip the UFC for bringing such an awful pay-per-view. We're also going to look at Belal Muhammad completely exposing the hypocrisy of Kamaru Usman. Usman is begging Islam Makahchev to fight Belal and take his belt. Usman wouldn't do that with his buddy Adesanya or his great pal Habib. We'll get into that too. And then to close out, we'll talk a little bit about the looming super fight between Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira. It'd be a super high stakes rematch this summer for the BMF belt. And it's actually a real possibility. First things first though, UFC 312, okay? Main event, Du Plessis, Strickland 2. Not the main event that most of us wanted. We all wanted Du Plessis versus Khamzat. But the UFC wanted to give Sean Strickland his flowers. Hey, we told you we'd give you the next shot, even though you got a meh decision against Paulo Costa, and Khamzat nearly decapitated Rob Whittaker with one of the nastiest chokes ever and destroyed his jaw. But no, a close decision against Costa. You're fighting for the belt. So I don't love the main event anyways, but Du Plessis and Strickland still a title fight, still a good fight. Weili and Suarez, cool women's fight. Suarez is probably the most underrated girl in women's MMA, and I think she's going to grab the strap from Weili. But as we look down the card, what are we doing, UFC? Talison Teixeira and Justin Tafa as the featured fight on the pay-per-view? Teixeira is an unknown Brazilian prospect who looks a little clunky, but he's 6'7", so put him on the pay-per-view. And Tafa, a known journeyman at heavyweight. That's a pay-per-view fight? That's a prelim fight at the UFC Apex. Jimmy Crute, Rodolfo Bellato, potential for fireworks, but two completely irrelevant light heavyweights. Jake Matthews and Francisco Prado, probably a good banger, but not a main card fight. Don't even get me started about the prelims. The prelim fights that interest me, okay, Jack Jenkins and Gabriel Santos. That's actually a cool fight. Cody Haddon versus Topuria, because I want to see if the older brother of Topuria is actually good. Nothing else really moves the needle much. I mean, I guess it'll be cool to see Cody Steele make his debut. He's a good grappler. Kong Wang got exposed recently. She's probably getting exposed again. This is a pay-per-view, though, in 2025. Forget the prelims. This is what we're having as our pay-per-view lineup. We're paying $80 for this crap? The UFC should be ashamed of themselves for even bringing this to us. Sure, Australia has crazy high taxes, and a lot of fighters don't want to fight there. I get it. But can we at least, make some deals behind closed doors? Hey, we'll give you an extra $25K. We'll give you an extra $30,000. Just fight in Australia. We'll cover you when you come back to the States. We'll give you a bonus. We'll give you a little extra something. And make a better card, because this is unacceptable. This is the worst pay-per-view I think I've seen in years. I mean, last year, UFC 297, and it was the first fight between Du Plessis and Strickland, was getting trashed as being a horrible card. But my God, when you look at it now, it's pretty good. Movsar Evloev of Arnold Allen, way better than anything we're seeing at 312. That compares to Matthews and Prado? No, at least those are high-level contenders, ranked fighters. Chris Curtis and Berrios? I mean, Berrios a good brawler. Curtis at the time teetering in the top 15. Curtis is still entertaining. I guess that's a decent fight in comparison to Jimmy Crute and Bellato. At least they're higher ranked middleweights. Neil Magny and Mike Malott. Mike Malott surging. He's this Canadian prospect that has promise, and Canada is praying that he wins. He gets exposed by Magny, but at least it's a fight in the rankings. We got Talison Teixeira and Justin Tafa. We have irrelevant journeyman brawler who's entertaining because of the knockout potential, but he's not good, versus Talison Teixeira, who might be decent. He's a prospect, but I still have a lot of question marks around if he's even good, and I don't think his debut should be a featured fight. And that was 297. And 297 got a lot of hate. 297 got shafted. By me, I was trashing it too. Pennington versus Bueno Silva in the co-main. Okay, it's a women's title fight. I'm more interested, actually, in Weili versus Suarez, so at least the women's fight's better. Du Plessis Strickland 2 is less hyped than Du Plessis Strickland 1. We saw the fight. Khamzat is the guy that should be in the spot. He's the bigger star than Strickland, and he's the more deserving contender. Strickland's an ex-champ, but what he's done lately is a split decision over Costa. He definitely won, but it wasn't impressive. That's one of the worst cards of last year. What does it compare to one of the other worst cards of last year? UFC 301. After the high of UFC 300, UFC 301 seemed like a joke. Pantoja Urseg, okay, the bigger fight is Duplessis Strickland. Aldo Martinez, though, Jose Aldo's a legend. It was the comeback fight for him. There's some hype on that. Anthony Smith Petrino, I mean, at the time, Petrino was supposed to be like the next Paulo Costa or something like that. He's a Brazilian savage with heavy hands. He's a knockout artist. He's strong on the ground. Michel Pereira Potieria, who doesn't want to watch Michel Pereira fight? Caio Baraijo versus Paul Craig. That was actually a high-stakes fight, and Baraijo's a top contender now. In contrast, what we're seeing here, like at least we have fighters on the come up that have some real promising potential, right? You have Jimmy Crute and Bellato. I mean, you could say Bellato's a prospect, but is he really? Petrino chinned him twice. He was getting rocked by Ihor Potieria in their fight. And he's fighting Jimmy Crute, who's, I thought, retired, actually. I'm surprised he's coming back. Jake Matthews and Prado, it's a prelim fight, and you got to pay for this. This is $80, guys. USA, we're paying prime dollar for this card, and this is what they're giving us? Oh, my God. Anshul Jubilee in the feature prelim? Quillen Sackle's exciting, but he's a prospect. It's a card filled with a lot of prospect fights, but even to just not shit on the prelims, because you know what? They bring all the local talent on the prelims, but at least give us ranked fights with compelling, I don't know, futures to it, with like high-level guys on the come-up that actually seem to move the needle. You say, oh, but Taliesin Teixeira, maybe he's the next big thing from Brazil. Is he really, though? I don't know. He shouldn't be making his debut on a pay-per-view against Justin Tafa. That's a prelim fight. So we have 3 prelim fights. And I mean, maybe Matthews and Prado is on the main card of a fight night to open it up. And maybe you can say Crute opens up a main card too. Or Teixeira versus Tafa. If it was on this spot of a UFC Apex card, I wouldn't even be complaining. But this is a pay-per-view in 2025. Could they not give us ranked contenders? Do they not have anybody available? No, they just put them on different cards. I don't get it. Why are we not doing this fight? Steve Urseg, Asu Almabayev. They're doing it at the Apex a few weeks later. Why not just give the guys a little earlier notice and say, hey, we're going to put you on this card in Australia. Urseg, one of the most promising up-and-comers from Australia, former title challenger. He's at least a name from there. Let's at least do Urseg on the card. And Almabayev is a scary savage on the come-up with dominant wrestling. Would they not want Urseg to get dominated on home soil? At least he'd fight in front of his people. Instead of he's at the Apex, nobody's there. We got 30 people in attendance. Woo! What's the logic? And Tai Tuivasa's not in the card. So now Justin Tafa is running the show. He's the big hype, heavy-handed savage on the main card. The Samoan savage. Like, why don't we just do this fight? Tafa versus Johanata Diniz. Why would that not be booked? Tafa hasn't fought for a while. What was it, August? Diniz lost recently, but he was booked to fight against Petrino. And in a fight like this, it's not like he has to make many adaptations to his style. It's a fellow striker. So why not just put this together? Why didn't the UFC scramble to make this happen? If this was the featured fight, and then there was also Steve Urseg on the card versus Almabayev, and then the main card opener was Jimmy Crute versus Bellato, I wouldn't be sitting here yelling on camera as much. I wouldn't be as upset with the UFC. But when you bring us a junk card like this, I just think you're using this as like a standby event, especially because the card before, next week's card, the Saudi card, is a lit fight night. And 2 weeks after, we have one of the most banger fight nights in America in a long time, UFC Seattle, which is essentially like a pay-per-view card. But the pay-per-view is trash. I don't get it. I struggle to grasp the UFC's mindset here. They're giving us 2 title fights and an Apex card. Thanks, UFC. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Let me know in the comments, man. Rate this card 1 to 10. I'm giving it a good 4. I mean, the pay-per-view's a 2. The card as a whole, at least there's like some decent fights. I like Gabriel Santos, Jack Jenkins. That's a cool fight. I'm curious to see Tom Nolan versus Slavikolos. Like, there's okay prospect fights. I want to see Topuria and Haddon. But be real, that pay-per-view is lacking. It's not a pay-per-view. They should give this card to us for free. This should be a free numbered event. because that's what it looks like to me. And I doubt it does that many pay-per-view buys. I don't think Strickland is selling nearly as much as people might assume. I mean, sure, there's going to be people watching and buying. I'll be buying, I'll be watching, I'll be streaming, I'll be covering it. But damn, I mean, leading up to the co-main event, it's prelim fights. It's all prelim fights. It's all prelims, and then it's two championship co-main and main. That's it. But prelim card. Here you go, guys. Thanks, UFC. Come on. I literally put 2 fights on the card that would have made it way better. It still wouldn't have been like the most amazing card of all time, but at least more tolerable. I'm pissed off. I'm going to freak out. If I keep rambling about this card, I'm just going to get more mad. I want to jump to the next subject, though, because this is actually pretty funny. Belal is just doing 10-8s on Usman all day. He came on his podcast, 10-8'd Usman, and then Usman didn't post it. Him and Cejudo are like, dog, we can't release that to the public. But still, Usman is adamant about trashing Belal. And instead of just, getting a win and trying to earn his shot at Belal and beat him, he wants to send Islam Makahchev after him. Listen to this. Let's listen.
The decision that I would make next, yeah, 100%. I would definitely probably go up. This whole notion of a Belal training with them, they don't want to, bro. No, I'm going up there. I'm whipping him. I don't care. Just because he comes into our camp, just tries to use our bodies and learn our style. I'm moving up. I'm whipping him. I'm taking that belt. And hey, I'm moving on to the next. I think.
Oh, you do that, Kamaru Usman? Really? Because you never made a push to go for double champ status. Didn't you even deny fighting Khabib because that's your brother? Khabib's your brother. You didn't train with him before, but that's your brother. You're both managed by the same guy, so he's your brother now. Didn't you not want to fight Adesanya because you're both African? So you would rather not go for dual champ status, but you never trained with them before. So you're telling Belal to do it. You know the relationship between Islam Makahchev and Belal Muhammad. You're saying that Belal just uses them? Khabib considers Belal a brother. He's saying they're brothers. They're too tight. They're not going to fight each other. But Usman makes the call, the guy who literally turned down the super fights because he didn't want to fight Khabib or Israel Adesanya because those are his boys that he's never trained with, like never ever trained with. But no, we're too cool. But you're telling Islam Makahchev what he should do because you know his relationship, right? He went on Joe Rogan's show and he said this. This is 4 years ago. You guys remember this? It was on the JRE MMA show. Listen to this. Mr. Hypocrisy, Kamaru Usman. Listen in.
Yeah, but I would never fight Khabib.
Really?
Yeah. That's my brother. It's just like a mutual respect where I don't see myself ever fighting Khabib. I don't see myself ever fighting Israel. Even though a lot of people have kind of been hinting towards it, they're like, yeah, you guys need to fight.
So people hinting towards it. You're hinting towards Makahchev should be fighting against Belal. Somebody that he trains with sometimes, on occasion, but during camps, they've trained together in the lead up to massive fights and they've built a relationship. But you've never trained with Khabib. You've never trained with Adesanya, but those are your brothers, so you don't want to fight against them. But Belal has to do it. So the rules apply for thee, but, not for you. For me, but not for thee. That's the bullshit we're doing with Usman. What a damn hypocrite, Kamaru Usman. What a hypocrite. Usman's fallen off, man. He's lost all aura. Usman is not the same as the Usman of the past, man. He's like the angry Uncle Usman. He's not the Usman that we all used to know and hate, okay? The Usman that was bold and confident. Now he's telling, Islam Makahchev, can you handle him for me? Because I don't think I can. Thankfully, Belal doesn't just sit silent. Belal talks his trash. Belal absolutely ends Kamaru Usman's career in this one, okay? Because he called out the hypocrisy too. He said something about it. I'll play the clip. We're going to listen to Belal talk for, 20 seconds or so. Let's listen to Belal.
He said, I'll never fight Israel. He also said he'll never fight Khabib. And I'm like, bro, you never trained with him before. But that's the thing. When Kamaru was champion, he wasn't looking for test. He was a coward champion. He was the...
I love that he called him a coward champion, but when you really think back to Usman's reign at the top, it got a lot of hype. He fought Gilbert Burns, so they say, that was his boy. He'll fight Burns. So actually a guy he trained with, blood, sweat, and tears on the come up, you'll fight Burns. You'll fight him, but you won't fight against Usman because you're both African. You won't fight against Habib because that's your brother. But you'll fight against your boy. You'll fight against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a nothing to you. Oh, we train together, but so what? What type of teammate is that? It's crazy. He should have said, nah, I won't fight Burns. That's my brother. Then I would have had more respect for it if he would have turned down the Burns fight because of it. And then if he would have never said this mumbo jumbo garbage. It's crazy to me that Usman says this shit with a straight face. Not like we don't have notes of him in the past saying things completely different. He's a hypocrite. He must have forgot who he used to be. I don't think it's the same Usman. That head kick from Leon changed him forever. Let's look at the next clip of Belal. We got more Belal. Belal's the spotlight kid today. Let's play it.
When he says, oh man, these guys, they train together. Yeah, let's get rid of that notion. I'm like, bro, shut up. You've never been in a room with Adesanya or worked out with it or sweated with Adesanya in your life. And you've made it seem like you'll never fight him ever because he's your brother. But this guy's a podcaster now, right? That's what he is. He's not a fighter. And
I love that he's calling him a podcaster because facts, though. When's the last time Usman fought? He took the short notice fight against Khamzat Chimaev and got a pat on the back. Hey, you lost, but you went the distance, bro. You lost, but you went the distance. Belal is speaking facts, and he's 10-7 in Usman on so many occasions. If I'm Usman, I'm pissed off. If I'm Usman, I'm getting back in the cage ASAP, fighting whoever I need, and immediately calling out Belal because he's one win away from a fight against Belal. Let's be real. Let's be real. If Usman was to win one fight, they'll give him another title shot, especially with the deep-rooted beef between the two of them. He's telling Belal, you have to fight against Makahchev. You have to fight him. Even though, I wasn't going to fight Adesanya. No, I wouldn't fight those guys. I wouldn't fight Habib. That's my brother. I've never worked out with him. I barely really know him. We've had interactions, but no, I'm not fighting him. You just see him at UFC events. No, I'm not stepping in the cage. What is he on about? Let's listen to Belal some more because he keeps going after Usman, and he pretty much just demoralizes Usman's mentality at this point and seemingly is correct that Usman is not trying to fight good contenders on the come up.
Want to get your name back in the mix by fighting one of these tough guys? No, because like I said, he doesn't want to take these tough fights. He doesn't want to take these tough tests. He'll fight the Hamzat on 1 week notice because now he has that excuse built up. If he loses, like, oh, at least I took him on 1 week notice and nobody else would do that. But, it was a close fight. So I'm proud to be in a close loss.
Honestly, though, when you think about it, Usman taking that fight so willingly to jump in against Hamza was like a 0-loss situation. He hasn't lost his ranking at welterweight, even though he hasn't fought in the weight class since the since the trilogy against Leon. How damn long ago? And he's just kind of holding a spot, not fighting the contenders. He's called out by Buckley. No, these guys, wait out. I'll come back. You'll see. Keep my name out your mouth. Ian Gary calls on, nah. What is he going to do? We're going to do a trilogy against Colby Covington next? I think in a perfect world, what Usman wants is either Colby Covington or Wonderboy. He wants easy fights. That's what he wants. He wants easy fights. He doesn't want to fight these savages, these hungry lions on the come up looking to take his ranking. He wants to fight the other oldies, the guys who are like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, who have shown flaws in their game. He doesn't want to fight the real savages. He doesn't want to fight against Buckley. He doesn't want to deal with the power. He doesn't want to risk getting clipped. He doesn't want to risk getting knocked out again. Then he should retire. Another Belal clip. One more.
A good streak. For Usman, it's like you just got called out by Buckley. You got called out by Ian. You got called out by all these guys. And then he's playing all these losers keep calling me out. Why you guys keep calling me out for? Don't worry about me when I'm healthy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, you've been out over a year. Like, if your knees are gone, your knees are gone. Like, they're not going to get any better. You're not going to just randomly grow cartilage.
That's so true. Usman's knees were said to be dead in the lead up to the rematch against Leon. What is he doing to get him back? I don't think you can regrow cartilage. Maybe he's doing stem cells like a menace. He's taking every peptide under the sun. I don't know. But what I do know is if Usman wants to be taken seriously, he needs to zip the lip and accept the damn fight. Jack Della and him were supposed to be fighting. Doesn't happen. Nope. Jack Della instead going to go fight against Leon Edwards in a high-stakes main event. And honestly, if Jack Della wins, he's the top contender. So why not fight Ian Gary? Nah, I don't want that fight. Why not fight against Buckley? Nah, doesn't have name value. Why not fight against Sean Brady? Who is that? I don't know who it is. What does Usman want? What does Usman want? It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make any sense. He doesn't want the business. He's not in the business of fighting. He's in the business of talking now. He's doing what I'm doing. He's doing podcasts now. Honestly, I agree with Belal. At this point, Usman is just MMA opinion. That's all. And he's talking like he still wants to mix it up with the Savages, but I don't think that he does, okay? Belal 10-6. Belal just absolutely wrecking Usman. Every chance Belal gets, he just embarrasses Kamaru Usman. And you have to wonder what the psyche of Usman is. Because at one point, like, Usman was one of those like hardcore alpha types. He doesn't take shit from anybody. Now he's kind of getting smacked around by Belal multiple times a year. Like, got to check himself, man. He got to check himself, man. I don't know what's going on. Kamaru Usman needs to get back into fighting because it's a horrible look for him. Belal, congratulations. You're building some fan lore with this trash talk of Usman, and I'd be rooting for him against Kamaru. I hope they make that fight eventually. I hope Usman wins one, and if Belal's still champ, or even if he's not champ, I want to see those two run it. I do. Now, I will say the exciting story, and this is, a little bit of a pure hypothetical, but both fighters are agreeing. So, okay, it was said that, Charles Oliveira might be next in line, but Islam may not want to fight until October. So Oliveira mentioned, hey, I'm down to fight before then, and why not go for the BMF belt? He wants to at least fight for a strap. Max Holloway holding the BMF title. This would actually be a rematch. Years ago, they fought at 145, and it was like a torn trachea from Oliveira against the cage early in round one, and the fight was a non-conclusive finish. I want to see what would actually happen if those two throw down now, especially at 155, because let's be real, Oliveira is looking better than ever before for the most part. His grappling skills are solid. Still, it's not champion has a name Oliveira, but it's high-caliber contender Oliveira. And Holloway looked god tier against Gaethje at 155. I know he just got smashed against Ilia Topuria, but at 145, he drained himself down. I don't think that's the optimal Holloway at this point. Like mid-30s Holloway, I think he should be sticking with 155. He's gonna now. And starting it off with a fight against Oliveira, BMF title fight, especially if Islam Makahchev is not jumping at the bit to get back in the cage relatively quick, I feel like, this fight, it further ingrains Oliveira as like a true top contender because we'll have the BMF strap, and I think will build a more compelling storyline for the rematch against Islam Makahchev, which was supposed to take place a while ago, and obviously injury to Oliveira. Volk steps in, they do the rematch. Whatever happened there, he got head kicked. Volk's done for. Sarukian, the UFC, specifically Dana White, has said, no, you're not getting the next shot. Sarukian, you ain't getting it. So then Charles Oliveira becomes the right fight. But if Islam wants to wait around for a bit, I love the idea of these two fighting. And it's not like this is just hearsay, because International Fight Week, ? Max Holloway replied. Max Holloway wants to do it over the summer, and I think the UFC putting an International Fight Week pay-per-view together, John Jones, Aspinall main event, BMF title fight, Oliveira, Holloway in the co-main, that's such a sick pay-per-view. I pray that they do the fight. And I was really sitting on the matchup and trying to think of like how they clash. You have to imagine that Oliveira, with his current style, the grappling threat would be pretty substantial. I know normally Max Holloway is pretty sound defensively on the ground, but he was taken down a bit by Topuria. And let's be fair, at 145, right? There's nobody with the style of grappling at this point like Charlie O. I could see Charlie dragging him to the floor, using some jiu-jitsu, and maybe even taking his back and locking up a sub. We've seen Holloway, submitted and dominated on the ground in the past. There's a lot of his fights, more recently, is striking fights. And it's not like Oliveira couldn't hurt him on the feet. Holloway coming off a knockout loss too. I'm leaning towards Oliveira, but if Max Holloway gets going, let's say Max Holloway beats up Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Islam Makahchev is not an outlandish fight. It's not that crazy. Obviously, Holloway having the loss to Topuria, and then if he goes out there and beats Oliveira, it would kind of push Topuria like, hey, look at this. Topuria beat Holloway, and now Holloway just took out a top 2 contender in the lightweight division. the Topuria versus Makahchev fight is like a dream super fight. And I know that Makahchev would be down for it, even though his, true interest would be double champ status, but him not wanting to fight Belal and maybe even not wanting to fight Shavkat, that could hold up a jump to 170 for a year or so, maybe even 2 years, depending on how long either one of them reign at the top, if he's unwilling to fight either one of them. So then a super fight against Topuria could happen. But I do think Topuria needs one more title defense before we really get into it. But Holloway versus Oliveira 2, please. Their first fight was so inconclusive. I want a final answer. And honestly, whoever wins is in a great position at 155. If it's Oliveira, then it's like, yeah, he can swoop in and get that Makahchev fight going. And if it's Holloway, his 2 recent wins at 155 are massive. A destruction of Justin Gaethje and a win over Charles Oliveira. He's really making a claim to get a title shot too, especially, still having the BMF strap, even though, let's be real, he got badly knocked out. It should be around Topuria's shoulder. But, the BMF title is not on the line with championship fights. But hard to say Islam Makahchev wouldn't deserve a BMF belt because he accepted Moicano like this, not preparing for himself. It's easy money and taps him in the first round. I want to see Holloway versus Oliveira. So please, UFC, make this happen. I will keep my fingers crossed that this comes to fruition. There is some exciting things in 2025, but let me tell you what's not. 312, not very exciting. 312, substantial letdown. 312, irritation. I'm irritated thinking about 312 some more. To close out the video, I said one last roast of 312. What are you doing, UFC? Why? Why are you doing this to us? Why do fans deserve this? We have UFC 311, absolute banger card. Even though the main event fell through, is still incredible. And now we got this for 312. And then 313 is going to be lit too. All the fight nights are going to be amazing. And then the pay-per-view sucks. I don't get the logic at all. So hopefully the UFC get it straightened out. I don't know. Maybe can we add a fight? Can we call Tuivasa on short notice and Janiz at least? Like, if you don't want to move Urseg, Almabayev, I get it. They need their full camps. Can Tuivasa come off the couch and fight Janiz in a high-stakes heavyweight fight? 2 heavy-handed guys. At least one more fight on the main card. That's something. Something, please. Something entertaining. Something high level. Like, sure, the fights might still be good. But the fights can still deliver. I realize that. I'm not blind to that reality. I'm just saying, name value-wise, nada on this card. 312 is a disgrace. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's pretty amplified and excited news reaction. Make sure you all smash the like button if you haven't yet. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe it up. I got daily content, the double-a-day lives, news reactions, picks, and more. I'm bringing the thunder every single day, my people. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think of everything. Definitely hashtag we got to do Oliveira Holloway too. BMF, please. Please make it happen. But yeah, W in the comments just to support your boy. Boost the algorithm for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.